Combat Chat Podcast. This is an Aussie-based show covering everything to do with Muay Thai, submission grappling, MMA boxing, and weird news the fight world has to offer each week. Now, it's time to combat sports and chill with your boys, Shane, Trent, and Hugh.
Alright, yo, welcome back. It's the Combat Chat Podcast here, episode 130, with your boys, Shane and Trent, via Zoom.
Hello.
We're back in the quarantine kind of days again. Yeah, I'm feeling...
Why are we on quarantine today, Shane?
You gotta put me on blaster. You gotta do me like that, are you? I get my seasonal sinus infections, but I decided to play it safe and get tested, so I'm waiting for my test. Like, I think about tomorrow or the day after it should be good, but I think it should be fine. I feel fine now.
Okay.
But, got to be safe. I'm not gonna risk it for anyone. I don't want to stuff anyone else's day up, you know what I mean?
Don't turn us into Melbourne.
That's right. So it's just me, Trent. We do have a guest, but our Nuck Moy fanboy, Hugh O'Donnell's not here today. He's out in beautiful Katoomba. And I saw in his Insta stories there it's a little bit snowy, so yeah, he must be enjoying it. That one, but let's go into, we have a guest today. That one. So let's just rattle off a few of the achievements from there, and then we'll get straight into him. Okay, so from that, he's a black belt in Judo and Jiu Jitsu. He's multiple national and national and Oceanic titles in Judo. He was also a 2008 Beijing Olympian for Australia. Barely missed out on the 2012 London Games, and he's also the owner of Beyond Grappling in Canberra and has lots of instructionals on the great instructional online site BJ Fanatics. We have Matt D'Aquino. How are you, sir?
Hey.
Oh, thanks for having me.
No problem, mate. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. So, as when we have someone first on the podcast all the time, we want to know all about them from the beginning. So, how did you get into martial arts? And what drove you to go into martial arts as well?
Yeah. So my brother and I, my older brother and I, used to fight all the time at home. Usually after watching The Karate Kid, we'd wrestle each other. I don't know, we didn't kick and punch each other. And my mum, man, I'm sick of you guys wrestling all the time. I'm going to get you into some sort of judo or wrestling. She took us down to the local PCYC and got started into judo and fell in love with it straight away.
That's it.
So that was 5.5.
5.5, yeah, that's
Nice.
It's really young as well, like to kind of just know straight away where you go. This is me, without kind of diverging off the path too much.
Yeah. So I kind of I played I did rugby league and judo, cricket and judo, soccer and judo. Like judo was always the consistent one, and then hockey and judo. But I think when I was 12 years old, I saw a lot of my coaches at a different club trying to make the Olympics, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to make the Olympics. But I just love the fact that, because I'm small, I'm only 68 kilos, and I competed at under 60 kilos. So growing up, I was always small. But I love the fact that I could fight bigger kids and just smash them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Technique and timing, and just being a competitive person. I think that's probably the main one.
Oh, that's great.
Was it tough cutting from 68 down to 60 kilos? Was that a hard cut?
Now I'm 68. I probably walked around at 64 kilos to make 60.
Okay.
Now that I'm retired from hardcore competition, now I'm 68 to 70. So dad bod.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just letting yourself go, mate. Yeah. So, a lot of our listeners from there, are probably not very hardcore judo practitioners from there. Can you explain judo to us a little bit, like the art itself, and maybe even just go into what does a competition look like, how it's scored and things like that?
Yeah. So judo started pretty much from the 1600s in Japan to the I think late 1800s to early 1900s. The samurais, kind of with walk the streets. I think they still killed each other in the streets, so they kind of did jiu-jitsu, Japanese jiu-jitsu, and around the later 1800s, it started getting really frowned upon, kind of samurais and jiu-jitsu and that sort of stuff. So, and around about that time, a guy called Jigoro Kano started learning some jiu-jitsu. He was 48, 50 kilos, super small, got really good at 3 different forms or 2 different forms of it, and then started going, oh man, a lot of these moves are pretty strength-based. So he altered a lot of the moves and then ended up creating Kano Jiu-Jitsu or Kodokan Judo as we know it today. And then so then he kind of became part of the International Olympic Committee, and then after all that, judo came into the Olympics in '64, and it became a standard sport in the Olympics in the '92 Olympics and onward. So that's kind of judo, how it kind of all began. And then to win a match in judo, you can throw someone flat on their back really hard, and you win the match, or you can throw them on their side twice and you win the match, or you can armbar to submission, strangle, or pin for 10 or 20 seconds and you win the match. So that's kind of the general gist of the sport and the art kind of put together. So, yeah, pretty cool. It's really fun. Like, same as Jiu-Jitsu, it's fun.
Yeah, I got my yellow belt in judo. I started the other way around. I started out in Jiu-Jitsu, and then I discovered judo. But I'll just say my judo training was kind of hard. My instructor was like 120 kilos, and he liked to use me as his crash dummy.
Yeah.
So that was a hard lesson. I learned how to break fall really quickly. Yeah.
Which is a good skill to have.
Judo. What's that?
It's a good skill to have to learn how to fall, but it's a bad skill to be heavy and use light partners.
It didn't put me off, because I went to one of your seminars and I thought, this is awesome because I can use it for Jiu-Jitsu now, rather than just learn how to fall really hard on jigsaw mats.
Oh man! And you double bounce? You bounce twice?
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes your ankles will click together. That hurts.
Yeah. That's why you're going to break fall with your whole body, not just with your hand. Mm-hmm. So if you break fall with your feet and your hand, you spread the force even further, so it's actually nicer.
Yeah, I saw some really bad injuries, like horror injuries from bad break falls. So that's why I learned how to do it properly.
Yeah.
And then we have crash mats at our gym. It's awesome.
Yeah, we use crash mats all the time.
Get over here. I just want to train you all the time.
Yeah, definitely. So because a lot of our audience probably a little bit more familiar with the jiu-jitsu side of things from there. In judo itself, is there any kind of techniques within the competition sense that you're not allowed to do that you'd see in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so now, so from 2009, the Judo Federation said that judo looked a lot like wrestling, a lot of bent over, fireman's carries, double legs, single legs. So they removed fireman's, more than non-traditional, more traditional wrestling style throws out of judo. So now judo and wrestling look a lot different, where from the 2000 Olympics, especially 2004 and 2008, judo looked a lot like wrestling. Heaps of fireman's carries, pickups, leg grabs. So they removed them. So now judo is you fight like this, and wrestling you fight like this, freestyle. Mm-hmm. So now there's a clear distinction between the two. So if you're a jiu-jitsu and you want to do judo, and you go to the local judo club, they'll annoy you because they'll say, "Don't grab my legs. Stop doing double legs. Stop doing pickups." And so it's been watered down in that sense. I've got guys that are black belts now. They've never fought someone using double legs and single legs, and it's just a different style of judo. It's a whole different sport to kind of what I grew up with. Because your reactions are different. Judo players don't know how to sprawl anymore, where 10 years ago they did because it was double legs. So it actually changes the whole athlete, not just the whole sport, the whole athlete, the whole everything just changes.
So if I shoot a single leg, I'll get told off for it then. That's all I've got, singles and doubles.
Yeah. I sometimes, we had a white belt the other day come to judo. And he said, when I spar, what are the rules? I said, there is no rules for you. He goes, someone said I can't grab here and I can't grab there. I said, you're a white belt. You can grab wherever you want. And if a black belt complains, you just tell them you're a black belt. Get over it. You shouldn't need the rules so I can grip determine whether you can fight me or not. You know what I mean? So there's an element you want to be safe. But if a beginner has a one-sided grip for a long time and they're like, you can't do that in competition, it's like, dude, you're a black belt. Get over it.
Okay.
So,
do I get a pass? If I come to your gym and I ankle pick somebody, will I get a pass because I'm from Jiu-Jitsu? Is that okay? Thanks.
Come on. You know you're going to pull
like this. I've got some people in my club that want to compete. And so for those guys, they should only play sport judo, so no leg grab. So if you leg grabbed a competitive judo guy, it's kind of, there's no point because they don't know how to defend them. It's like double legging a boxer at boxing training. Like, there's no point. They don't know how to defend it. So I said, but some of the guys, recreational judo players, leg grab them all day because they're not interested in the rules of the sport of judo. So it becomes really tricky in the classes.
Do you miss that old rule set? Did you prefer it when you could like grab someone at the legs?
Oh, that was my whole judo game, was leg grabs.
Yeah.
And once it was banned, I couldn't throw anyone. So I just had to discover normal judo moves again. But yes, I do miss it. It was cool seeing, judo guys. And that's why I could transition into wrestling and jiu-jitsu pretty well, because I was a leg grabber. But now some judo guys go into wrestling and they don't know what's going on. Or jiu-jitsu. So I can still do fine carries in jiu-jitsu. I can still do fine with leg grabs there, so I'm happy.
Yeah. The one big thing I'm scared of using in jiu-jitsu is the seoinage. I always think I'm going to get my back taken. I like the drop seoinage, but I'm scared of those hooks.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
If you do it wrong, but any judo throw, you do it wrong, you get back taken. Most of them. A lot of them.
That's true.
So if you can get deeper and do it properly, then it's okay. But yeah, it is risky. I've drop seoed heaps of people. I've fireman's carried dudes in comps. That was awesome. Yeah. Chris worked me out.
Oh well. At least you look cool in the highlight reel. They look awesome, most of those.
Up it at where I'm winning. That's the main thing, right?
Yeah, that's it. They just got to cut to that. Yeah, just snip it. Yeah.
So, like, in judo, like, I guess, like, any kind of combat sport, and from there, is there just, like, styles? Like, people prefer doing certain kind of things that kind of, like, to their physical attributes or their temperament that they find?
Yeah, so, like, there's lefties. So, southpaw, there's tall, skinny, there's short, stocky. There's groundwork guys that specialize in groundwork only, like me now. There's Russian grips and Mongolian-style judo. And because all those, the cool thing, with judo is, like, all around the world, there's traditional styles of wrestling. So you've got the Kazakhs do, like, I think Uzbekistan, they do Kurash, and the Koreans and the Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, they all have this, even in Mongolia and China, they've got their traditional styles of wrestling. And all those guys just become judo players, but they bring their traditional style of wrestling into judo. So it's really cool to fight different styles all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it. It just makes it more interesting because, instead of them going, like, at least I know what I'm going to be expecting here if everyone's doing the same stuff. Everyone's got their own tweaks, and then they can make you adapt and probably a better combat athlete in general.
Yeah, exactly right. So now, because I'm good on the ground, whenever, like, at the Nationals this year, as soon as I drag someone to the ground, they're, like, getting up as fast as they can. Like, I just drag them. I just try to drag them down to tie them up, but they always try to avoid because they know I'm not bad on the ground now.
You've got a really good collar drag to the ground too. I remember that one from when you were seminars. I steal that heaps.
Yeah, collar drag is such a good move.
Yeah. I steal from you shamelessly. I follow your instructionals. I have no shame. I like your no-gi judo throws as well. They work really well.
Yeah, and just gives a different element. Yeah, my no-gi judo is just a different element to wrestling. Like, sometimes people, singles and doubles and high crotches, that's cool, but it's nice to, have that different style of the judo throws as well, no-gi. And the foot sweeps and that as well. This adds a different style to wrestling.
Yep, for sure.
So let's go from there now. Let's talk about you going, like, when you first go, you know what? I think I'm going to give the Olympics a run. And, like, the process, because I never really met anyone that's actually ever been to the Olympics in kind of in any sport, really. So I'm just really interested to see, like, in terms of, like, how you got there, what's the actual training regimen like, what's it being on, like, on a world circuit as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so when I was young, so I started at that club when I was 5.5 or 5 or 6 or something like that. And then I moved to another club that was way more competitive. At the newer club, there was, like, heaps of people that already they were training for the 96 Olympics in Atlanta, and then they were training for Sydney. So I was kind of in the culture of a club that was competitive, that a lot of the adults were just trying to make the Olympics. So I kind of just came from a culture of there was always meeting Olympians and hanging out with them and training with them, that sort of stuff. So, so then I wanted to make the Olympics. So then to get there, I had to obviously I was only 12 when I made the decision to go to the Olympics, and I had to make, like, the junior, like the ACT team, the state team, then the national team, and then the senior national team. And back then, for Sydney, Athens, and Beijing, to make the Olympics, you had to be the number one in the Oceania region. So you had to qualify through the region. They take one person per weight division for the region. And so for Beijing, I qualified. I won the Oceania World Cup. I went to the Worlds and I won one match, and then I won the Oceania Championship. So I made the Olympics through that, and then I made the Olympics. Then for London, then 2009 they changed the rules, and then they also changed the Olympic selection where the top 22 in the world qualify for the Olympics. So rather than being a regional qualifier, it became a world ranking qualifier, which made it a lot more difficult. So what they do is they take your top 5 results in the first year and the top 5 results in the second year. They put them all together in a world ranking list, and whoever's the top 22 in the world qualify for the Olympics. So it's way harder than just the region, because we come from a weaker region of the Oceania region. So now it's a world ranking, so it's way more difficult to qualify. And I just missed out. I was probably like 25th or 26th in the world. At the very last tournament, me and another Aussie were really close, and he beat me. So I dropped to 25th or 26th in the world, and then he made 21 in the world, so he went to the Olympics, so I missed out. So that's kind of how the Olympic selection works for those two kind of things. It's a 2-year selection process, so it's if you get injured in that time, like you're done.
That's tough.
You know, like it's really tough financially, way more difficult than it was before. So, but they take the top 22 in the world. But say there's 2 Japanese, they only take one, so it'll drop to 24. And then if there's 2 Russians, it'll drop to 26. And actually now it's top 18 in the world. So for now, it's top 18. So it's very tricky.
Being an Olympic sport, was there a lot of government support from there?
Like you get flights and accommodation, but you don't get that's the thing. Like if I went to Japan for 3 weeks, my flights and accommodation might be paid for, but I'd have to pay for food, and no one's paying my rent at home and health insurance and phone bills, and you know what I mean. So what ended up happening was throughout my judo career, the Judo Federation would pay flights and they would pay for the trip. I would come home, work my butt off, pay them back. Then they would pay for the next trip. I'd come home, pay them back. But now, the Aussie guys now, you don't get to pay them back. It's either you pay for it or not. I think these days it's been even harder because it's an interest-free loan. Really, I could just take my time to pay them back whenever I wanted. So they were chasing money for athletes. So now it's. But I always, I was on good stead. I always paid them back, and then I would, get. Obviously, if you didn't pay them back, they wouldn't select you for more trips. So I wanted to go on trips. So that's kind of the life of the athlete. That's why people are like, "Are you going to try and make the next Olympics?" I'm like, you know how hard it is, like financially, emotionally, relationship-wise, with wife.
Yeah.
And, it's a massive commitment. It's a whole team of commitment, not just one decision. And the process is 2 years. It's a long process to make the Olympics. It's not like we're swimming in Australia. You just there's one tournament, and if you win the final, then you go to the Olympics. It's kind of one race, or there's 3 races really: a prelim, a semi, and a final. So it's difficult.
So it doesn't even compare to other Olympic sports in terms of difficulty. It's just it's a whole new level of difficulty trying to qualify for it.
Yeah, and I think it's because judo is such a world sport. Like there's so many countries involved that they can't just let anyone come because the pools will be too big. So I was talking to an Australian walker, and he did the 50K, and he raced one of the Olympics, and he was ranked 3rd in Australia, and he got to go to the Olympics. I was like, wow, 3rd in Australia. You didn't even have to go to the Worlds. No, I just had to go to the Nationals. If I got top 3, went to the Olympics. I'm like, wow. Imagine being top 3 in Australia, you go to the Olympics for judo or boxing or it's they'd be so easy. Yeah. But not many people around the world walk. Like it's not a massive sport. So there's that element as well.
So we should all take on walking. Is that where we're going there?
Yes.
At the Olympics, at the Olympics, he came 3rd at the Nationals. He went to the Olympics, and he walked 50 Ks, and it was the 4th time he'd walked that distance. He usually did 20 Ks. So it's like, man, imagine the fourth time he walked an event was like the fourth time he did Reiki, and it was at the Worlds in the Olympics. Like,
Yeah.
it's a different
start walking.
Yeah, different.
You know,
You know,
Yeah.
not bad. I mean, heck, I couldn't walk 50k.
Yeah, decent distance.
Injuries and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, there's just different sports and different, you know, and
Yeah, it's fair.
I did judo.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's how the selection of that all works. So yeah, so training wise was just training as much as you can. So leading up to Beijing, I'd pretty much train Monday to Friday, and I had a few different jobs. I would train 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. I do like cardio or weights. Then I'd work at the gym. At the gym I worked at, I trained at like a weights gym, 7 till 1. Then I'd do weights or stretching like 1 till 2. Then I'd go home and sleep, and I'd come back and do judo at night. So I could train 3 times a day, Monday to Friday, which is really cool and still work. And then on weekends I'd just work 12 hours on a Saturday at a service station, and then 12 hours on Sunday. So my weekends I would just work for 24 hours at a servo, and it was just sitting down. It was my judo coach's dad owned the servo, so I would literally sit there. I don't know how he employed me. I literally sat there sleeping on the counter. Someone would come in, I'd push the button, I'd serve them while I'm like half asleep. They'd leave, and I'd go back to sleep. And then next
Man.
like seriously. But my judo coach, he went to the Olympics, and they were obviously used to just tight athletes working there because they gave heaps of people jobs over the years. So what a blessing though, to be able to do that, you know.
Nice. You should have got a government job. Could have done the same thing.
Maybe.
So yeah, so like during your time, like, you know, training for like the Olympics and that one, was there a few like interesting stories that you picked up along the way? Like, you know, just being like a full-time athlete as much.
I think there's heaps. I mean, I have so many stories.
Oh, I'd love to hear them. Yeah, put anyone.
Where do you, there's this? I don't know. Sometimes you have stories of like I was in Japan when that massive tsunami hit.
Oh.
You know, there was 200,000 people died, and I was in Japan when that hit. So I had all, you know, like the newspapers contacting you, and then the phones went down, and that was pretty crazy. And then the government brought us home early, and then I was at the airport, and I ran into one of my friends who works for the Canberra Times, like the newspapers, and he said, "I'm interviewing that guy. He was in Japan in the tsunami." And I was like, "I was there too. Why are you interviewing me?" He goes, "Because the train that guy was meant to be on," he was like, "Oh, I'll just get a quick Coke from the vending machine." So he didn't catch the train. That train just went into like the abyss. Like the earthquake hit, and the train disappeared. So he was meant to be on that train. So I'm like, that sounds a way better story than mine. Like, just interview him. So yeah, you got heaps of stories of like judo stories of just getting bashed by everyone all the time in Japan. I mean, I don't know what story you want to hear. I'll tell you one.
What's the funny one?
I wasn't even about me.
That's all right.
I got heaps of like cutting weight, like so much in a sauna, like 4.5 kilos, and then fighting practically asleep because I had absolutely no energy to fight. I don't know. I've got so many stories. Where do you begin?
Well, it's like let's talk about like some of the, like, you know, training in Japan, because I imagine it's one of the powerhouse countries, obviously, in the Olympics from there. Like, so how was the experience like actually training there amongst in their training halls?
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, like Japan, the cool thing for Australia is that Japan is on the same time zone, so you don't get jet lagged when you go there. They're like an hour or two behind, like depending on daylight savings. So an hour behind us, it only takes like 9-10 hours to get there. Jetstar fly pretty cheap there, so it's actually a pretty cheap place to live, to train. And when you go there, there's 50 kilo adults up to 150 kilo adults, all on the same mat. There's between 100 and 400, depending on where you go. And it caters for all weight divisions. So the Australians would go there, and it tailors everyone, and the team can have at least 10 training partners each. So it's really cool. And whenever you go to Japan, obviously some of the schools, they're always getting foreigners. Australians, Americans, Canadians, Russians. So they're always like, who's here this week? Oh, it's the Australians, or who, you know. And they'll always buy you off. And in 2007, I went there with my wife, like 2007? Maybe 2009, one every year. We went there, and my wife came to watch. So she turned up to watch me train. I was just by myself, and I was training. And she said she was, the women were training next, and she said she was sitting there watching me, and all the women were like eyeing her off, like, who's this new girl I get to fight? And the one, like, I was so scared. They were eyeing me off like they wanted to fight me, so I just left. So she didn't even stay to watch me train. Just left. She was too scary. It is awesome. It is really awesome. The Japanese they're just so technical, so good. You can just do like 2 to 3 hour long training sessions that are just brutal, and everyone's either your ability or better. There's not many guys that are worse than you, and when you roll guys that are better than you, you get tired way faster. Like when you're in jiu-jitsu and you fight guys that aren't as good as you can roll for 2 hours without a drink break. You know what I mean? But as soon as one person is better than you, 6 minutes later you're like you're using energy to escape mount, and your cardio goes, and you're like, with people lower abilities than me, I can roll for an hour, and this one belt or competitive people, whoever they are, in 6 minutes I'm done. I'm just gassed. That's like we train in Australia, and you train hard, and then you can do sparring for an hour or an hour and a half, and then you go to Japan and 2 rounds you're done. You're like, I've got no cardio because they're better than you. So I think it's a big shift of gears of going up a notch and then up a notch again. So going to I was just telling someone yesterday, I was in Europe training for 6 weeks, and I was super fit. I came first at a small tournament in Switzerland, like a local comp, and then I came third at a tournament in Prague, and then we went to Paris and I trained with the French team, and I didn't throw someone, get it one score for 4 days. And it's like, here I am, I won this tournament, I came third over here, like I'm the man, and I just got destroyed. Because the tournaments I was in were like here, and the national team are like here, like world medalists, and I just got annihilated. But you just keep getting up, just keep getting back into it, just keep trying.
But do they have like the equivalent of an open weight in judo?
It's just over 100 kilos. But in terms of me fighting open weight,
do they allow that in judo?
It's not common.
No.
I saw a 60 kilo player fight open weight, maybe 120 kilo guy, and I was like watching like this.
Yeah.
It's just that much. Jiu-jitsu, it's okay because there's no gravity. Where, I reckon, there's less gravity. But it's not falling fast. I'm usually in open weight in jiu-jitsu. Even me, when I fight open weight in jiu-jitsu, I pull guard, depending on how big they are. Yeah. Because even though I'm a Mr. Olympic judo guy, I'm like, no, I'm going to pull guard because these guys are big. Yeah. And then you can kind of keep distance with your legs from there. In judo, it's a big difference. Yeah.
In training, do you have any massive injury kind of stories? Because I remember I was watching a YouTube channel, or maybe I was listening to a podcast. So I like to do a little bit of research. And that you've had lots of knee surgeries from doing and you said you tweaked your finger on doing drop saganakis. And
that's right.
Yeah. Do you have one in particular that you just go, man, that was a bad one?
Yeah, that's right. So my very first trip to Japan, I was so excited. Got this so I hurt my knee, had a meniscus cut out, so they cut the tear in my meniscus out. And then 8 weeks later, I got selected to go to Japan. So I went to Japan on my own, and I was fighting. And I was going pretty good actually, because it was a really low level university. And then on the very last day, the last round. It's always the last day. It's the last round of the day, or the second last round, one of the two. And this guy said, "Want to fight?" I was like, "No worries." And he went for. I was tired. When you get heavy legs, they get tired. You lose coordination. And he just grabbed me and spun me, and my foot stayed still, but my body moved, so my knee was kind of bent. He did a no-sotogari, which is a sweep, and my knee just went snap, crackle, pop. And I was like, and then then I went from there to Tokyo, met some friends in Tokyo. Then we went to Europe, and for 6 weeks I trained. I went to see a physio in Slovenia. He's like, "Oh, you did torn your meniscus again. It's all good." And I literally I cried every day, tears. I would be doing sparring at these training camps, and if anyone ever did no sotogari, I would just be tears, but going I just dug deep. I don't know how I did it. Now I'd be like, So I was just 6 weeks, came home, went to the physio. He's like, dude, you need knee reconstruction. Your knee's wrecked. And I'm like, no, the guy in Slovenia said I just tore meniscus. He said, oh, no, man, you're done. So a year off, and then I had another knee operation to remove the scar tissue, and then had another one to cut out the meniscus again, a different tear. Then I had another one on the other side to cut out the meniscus tear. So I think the knees were just my thing. But yeah, that was and then I've injured everything. Yeah, I remember once I had a Portuguese guy, Peruvian guy called Postigos. My wrist was stuck like in a wrist lock, like a gooseneck. And I was like, stop. And he just didn't stop. And he threw me and I literally wrist locked myself. So my elbow hit the mat and he landed on the top of it and just literally, yeah. So that was done. Like back, knee, hip, groin, ankle. Pretty much, I've never broken anything, but torn all the ligaments, yeah. Fingers, wrists, toes, knees, groin, ears.
So do you find are you getting more injuries in judo or jiu-jitsu, you reckon?
Yeah, definitely judo. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think because it's just physically more demanding. Like, it's just faster, harder. And judo guys usually, there's way more competitive judo guys than there is recreational. Where jiu-jitsu, I don't fight very many competitive jiu-jitsu guys. Like, most of the guys I train with are just recreational jiu-jitsu guys. Like, they're just, I don't very rarely fight a competitive jiu-jitsu guy that wants to get to the, the worlds or, And if I did consistently, then I would probably get injured more often. So I think it's more, I get injured more in judo because I'm fighting more competitors that fight harder. And, cross really hard and that sort of stuff, where in jiu-jitsu I fight recreational guys intermediate level competitively but not the next level.
That's one good thing about jiu-jitsu though. You can get to a pretty high level without having to fight top level competitors because you've got that accessibility to really good coaches like yourself. Then you've got that accessibility constantly through seminars, or maybe you've got a top level competitive coach. So I think compared to other sports, that's one advantage of jiu-jitsu. You can train some real killers in your gym without having to go to the higher level gyms.
Yeah, exactly
just
right.
from consistent training. Yeah.
And I think the level, there's so many jiu-jitsu practitioners in Australia. And when I go on holidays, I always go to do jiu-jitsu. And my wife goes, when you go on holidays, why do you go to jiu-jitsu? I'm like, because the local jiu-jitsu club in some random town in Australia will be a way higher level than the local judo club. Because in Australia there's 6,000 judo players. And in Australia there's 6,000 jiu-jitsu clubs. It's just the level is so much higher. And it's physically less demanding. So I can be on holidays and not be limping for 3 days. I can go there, I have a roll, go home and I can come back tomorrow. Where even when you fight competitive jiu-jitsu guys that sub you, it's kind of like, tap, let's go again, tap. Unless they're really cranking a guillotine. But in judo, it's like, wham! You got to get up, wham! Where in Japan, there's like good mats, sprung floor, so they take out a lot of the impact. So you're getting thrown cleanly on good equipment. Where most judo clubs are in school halls, so it's like, wham, on a mat this big on concrete. You're like, oh, dude, that hurt. Even if you know how to break form. So, I think, and jiu-jitsu also have a big emphasis on technique, where judo has a big emphasis on sparring, usually culturally. So, yeah.
Mm. Do you think judo guys, do they spend enough time on the ground game? Do you think they spend enough time doing this sort of Nawaza techniques?
I think now they do, because so many, like I'll go to a training camp now, and I'll get a 17-year-old or 18-year-old black belt, and we do groundwork, and within 10 seconds, I know that they've either done jiu-jitsu or they haven't. Like so many now. They can be 18 and they're a purple belt in jiu-jitsu and a black belt in judo, where 10 years ago, they were just like shooting fish in a barrel. Like, it was just so easy. But now it's like, so some do and some don't. I think that's kind of the main. I
just remember competitors like Travis Stevens. He attributed a lot of his success to jiu-jitsu and transferring it over the game, and he was quite critical of a lot of other top level judokas because I sort of ignored it. I'd be like, oh yeah, I know a couple of arm bars and something like that, but yeah, that's fine. They'd just go back and practice their throws. But he said he got to that silver medal because of his ground game.
Yeah.
And he said it changed it up a lot for him.
And you know, there's 4 ways to win in judo, and 3 of them are on the ground. Like, people are going. And this is the when you do international training camps, they'll do 2 hours of sparring. So it'd be like 1 round on, 1 round off. So you do an hour, and they'll do a groundwork for 10 minutes as warm up. Like even at international training camps, it's judo. This just stand up game is the standard, and everything else is just groundwork. But you got guys like Travis Stevens and Kayla Harrison, who's an American girl. She's 2-time Olympic champion in Rio or London. I can't remember which one. She won 5 matches for the Olympic gold, all of them on the ground.
Yeah,
all of them.
She was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, and the cool thing with the ground game in judo is you're 100% attacking. Like, they are in 100% a defensive mode. It's a free shot. And if you don't have a shot, what are you doing? Like, you're going to allow them to stand back up and re-fight you and re-engage? Like, that's ridiculous. So once they banned leg grabs for me, I won all my fights on the ground. I very rarely won a fight through throws. Because I was doing a lot of jiu-jitsu and my stand-up game was deleted. So I had to rebuild it. So I won all my matches on the ground too.
Yeah. I guess a lot of the guys are just going through Ippon, aren't they? Do you reckon they just see that Ippon as the easy win?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. Sometimes it's just club gym culture. But I know, like, for my competitive guys, if I said, okay, Tuesday morning we're going to do an hour of throwing at 6 a.m., they'd be like, oh. If I said, do you want to come an hour and do an hour of ground, just drilling groundwork attacks for an hour, they go, oh yeah, I'll do that. It's physically easier. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
You know? Like, so, yeah. But it's a massive hole in the competitive judo. So, for example, when I used to do international national training camps in Australia, we would do 10 rounds of 5 minutes in standing fighting, so tachiwaza randori, and then we do 5 rounds of 5 minutes on the ground. And I'd be like, well, this is jiu-jitsu. Like, 5 rounds of 5 minutes on the ground, that's jiu-jitsu. That's not judo. Sport judo is 20 seconds on the ground, that's it. And then the referee jumps in and starts again. And so I think judo culturally has a very lazy way in Australia to looking at competition judo. And so that's the reason why we don't do as well as the Americans, who have a much better way to look at it. Yeah.
You mentioned Kyla Harris. Was it Harrison?
Yeah.
And she went from Olympic gold medalist to a really successful MMA career. She's with, I think it's PFL now.
Yeah, PFL.
One of the fight leagues in the US. Yeah. Did you ever think about making a transition like that into another combat sport like MMA?
No, I think my transition came into more jiu-jitsu. So I think once after London, my wife and I decided after London, if I made it or not, I would retire from international competition. And so I kind of put the limit on what I wanted to do. And then I just concentrated on doing jiu-jitsu tournaments, really. So, but for me, I don't watch MMA. Not really that into it. I don't watch boxing. I watch kickboxing. I used to watch MMA like when Matt Hughes, Diego Sanchez kind of era. Maybe like Fighter Series 8, and then after that, I kind of they change them out so fast. I don't even know who they are anymore. Like, because they're in for a while, then they're gone to get out. And where back then, people were in for a long time. But yeah, so I kind of feel like I don't play soccer because I don't watch soccer, and I'm not interested in it. And MMA is the same. I'm not really that interested in it. So not really interested.
Yeah.
Plus, I think getting in the face would be really uncomfortable.
It hurts. I can confirm.
I was with a friend wearing shin and insteps, and I blocked his kick, and he nearly broke my leg in half. And I was like, and I'm wearing the pads. No thanks.
Yeah.
And I'm not a tough dude. I'm weak. So
I'm too old to get punched in the face.
No.
I've got enough problems.
I'm like that meme that goes, joke's on you, I'm into that shit. But now I'm like, because I'm the older guy, I'm the coach, and like, all the younger fighters come up, I go, I don't need to spar you, mate, that's all good.
Yeah.
It hurts now.
I'll try it.
Do you get more satisfaction from competing in jiu-jitsu or judo?
Good question. Because I was doing jiu-jitsu tournaments, and then I would either in jiu-jitsu, either in my purple belt, brown belt. I haven't competed at black yet, but in my purple belt and brown belt, I would either wreck dudes in 1 minute, or I'd get wrecked in 1 minute. I had all these guys. I would either flog them or I'd get flogged. I didn't have like a dig deep tussle with hardly anyone. And so only last year I said to my wife, I just want to have like someone that I have there's only one guy who's now a black belt, a Gracie Baja guy. Can't remember his name. We fought twice at purple belt, maybe one at brown, and he beat me twice, both times by a referee's decision. So that was the only match where it was really evenly matched. But all the others, I'd either get subbed or I'd sub them. There was like a gap. And my wife said, maybe jiu-jitsu's not going to get... And I said, I just want to go back to the days where I'd like a grind, where it's, there's a minute to go on the clock and I'm losing or I'm winning and I've got to dig deep. And, because I'm a competitor. Like, I like that, just to dig deep. And she said, maybe you're not going to get that from jiu-jitsu. Like, maybe you should go back to judo. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should. So last year's nationals, I went back to the judo nationals, having competed since 2012. And it was awesome. I had 5 matches. All of them were dig deepers. And I was having a blast. Like, first match I beat this young Australian rep guy. Then I lost to the guy that's ranked 30th in the world, Nathan Katz. Then I beat this South African dude. And it was a really hard match and I was losing. And then I didn't even beat him. He threw himself on his head. So he got disqualified, so I won. And then I fought this older dude who was awesome, and I beat him with 30 seconds to go. I threw him for a score. And then for the bronze medal, I fought Pedro Danuto. He's a jiu-jitsu and judo black belt. He runs the club somewhere. And he's a really good top-level judo player. And we went to golden score. Literally, I was laughing in the mat. I was having so much fun. Anyway, at the end of it, so I came 5th at the Nationals, and I haven't competed in 8 years.
That's all right. And
I don't train that much because I'm coaching now. But I came away going, this is what I missed, is grinding matches where, you're bashing them and they're bashing you and you nearly get thrown and you cartwheel. And anyway, I had an absolute blast. And one of the guys said to me, I've never seen you have so much fun at judo. I've known you since you were 10 years old. And I've seen you, I've never seen you have. And I said, I had a blast. Just to go back to grinding matches was just really fun. So I kind of hope, I'll do more judo comps now, but I kind of hope, I just kind of missed that tussle.
It's very anticlimactic when you get armbarred in 20 seconds and you've trained your ass off and you're out. It kind of happened to me when I went to the Worlds as a purple belt. Yeah, I was old. I didn't start this till very late in life, so I was an old timer when I started it. And my first match in the Worlds, I grounded out with another purple belt. But I remember the first time I competed, I think I got armbarred in like 10 seconds. I was like, what happened? Oh, you stood up. You should have stayed down. Anyway, it's all part of the lesson, isn't it?
And it all adds to you learning and improving. So good on you. I've been all over the world and lost in 10 seconds and spent $6,000 doing it. And people go, you're an idiot. No, I'm not. I could have won the match. And, but they all add up to you either chasing your goal or... So chasing a goal, and if you hit it or not, doesn't matter. At least you had a crack. That's the biggest lesson. Where the people that are like, that's ridiculous, they're the people that aren't chasing any goal. They just want to pay you out about it. So,
yeah, that's it. Yeah, I've had the same sort of reactions. Why'd you go to California to lose? Because it's fun. I don't know.
I did stuff afterwards.
Same reason I trained. What's that?
It's like, I did stuff afterwards as well. It's not like I went back home straight away.
Yeah, went on a holiday. Went to Florida as well. That was all right. So, for someone who's hypothetically, if I knew someone who had really terrible stand-up, what should I recommend to them if they want a good takedown kind of game for jiu-jitsu, for example?
If they've got terrible stand-up, well, it depends. You got two. This is the thing. You got 2 options. Are they a competitor or not a competitor?
I'll say a competitor. They want to try out competing for the first time.
Okay. If they want to try competing, they need to start every roll at the club standing. firstly, they need to learn how to break fall well.
Yep.
They need to receive throws. And then they need to, so they need to learn how to break fall. Then they need to learn how to get thrown hard. They start every roll standing. And if anything, you start every roll with you letting your partner throw you, and then the game begins. Then you start fighting at 50%. Attack and resistance. Attack and what am I saying? Attack and defend at 50% each.
Yep.
And they just need to learn. There's a two. You can learn the art of stand up, which is if you look at judo and jiu-jitsu is the same thing, which is what I kind of do. If you want to get good at jiu-jitsu stand up, then you got to learn judo because that's jiu-jitsu is the same thing. But if you want to learn takedowns for jiu-jitsu, then just specialize in takedowns for jiu-jitsu. But after a while, go back to learning judo again. So that's kind of it gets really iffy. Like if you want to get good on the ground at judo and you want to get a deeper understanding, then you just do jiu-jitsu. But if you want to get good at competition judo, then you ditch jiu-jitsu and you do transition work with a little bit of jiu-jitsu. So it depends on who they are and the goal they have, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm doing it. Yeah, I'm just confirmed. I'm doing it right. Okay. There you go, Shane.
Oh, yeah.
You have a big kids program as well, don't you?
A big kids program at my club, yeah.
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 So, how many?
Maybe 150, 160.
Oh wow, that's a lot. I had like 6 this morning. That drove me mad.
I was a primary school teacher. I like working with kids. I've got the skills, and my staff do as well. Like we run a good program.
Yeah. So, did you transition from primary school teacher into judo as a career?
Yeah. So I've been teaching judo all my life, like state coaching and running the kids' classes, that sort of stuff. And then after Beijing Olympics, I went to uni to become a teacher, primary school. And then I was a relief teacher for 3 years. And then I opened up my club. And I just started the club Monday, Thursday, Saturdays. Then those classes got full. Then I added a Tuesday. Then that class got full. Then I added another day. And so then what was happening was I'd work at school like 8 to 3:30. And then I'd work at the gym 4 till 6. So I was starting to get real big days. Then my wife went back to uni to do her master's in social work. So then I dialed back days I could work because she was at uni and I had the kids. And then now the club just got bigger and bigger, and now we run like 18 to 21 classes a week with 250, 260 people I think now. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's been 5 years in October.
Do you have a lot of assistant instructors helping you out with the kids' classes?
Yeah, so I've got Renee. She helps me with Mondays and she runs Wednesdays. She's one of the mums and she's fantastic. She's a black belt. I've got Liam, who's one of my students. He's an LSA at school and he's studying to become a teacher. So he runs some kids classes and he's fantastic with kids. Renee's fantastic with kids. And then I've got my assistant Mod, who helps run the teenage jiu-jitsu, and another guy called Pete. So yeah, I have like heaps of assistants that come in and help run a class or run a class. Yeah,
that's awesome. I've seen. I've had a look at your instructional judo games for kids. So I borrow from that a lot as well. That's awesome. You've got some really good games there, and the kids love it. They love sumo circle and tiger's tail and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah.
So I'm finding that it's a really good component for a kids program. Do you focus more on the play side or the technical side with a bit of play at the end?
So I hardly ever, although I did the other day, I hardly ever say, hey guys, let's do this, and then we'll play a game. I always say to the kids, they go, can we play a game? I go, but jiu-jitsu is a game. Like, is this not fun?
Yeah.
Then why are you asking to play a game? This is a game. So straight away, I always put more emphasis on jiu-jitsu or judo than the game. So I do 1 hour classes for kids. So I do 15 minutes of fundamental motor skills, rolling, cartwheels, handstands, forward rolls, break falls, 15 minutes. Quick drink break, quick game, 15 minutes ground game, ground fighting, or, newaza, whether it's fighting, whether it's wrestling, whether it's a technique. Game, quick game, 15 minutes stand-up, 5-minute game, lessons finished. So I kind of break up the hour into 15-minute blocks or 6 to 10. So I I'll do, say we're doing stand-up fighting, so Tachiwaza Randori. I'll say, hey guys, everyone stand back to back. First game, you got to turn around and you got to get behind your partner in a bear hug. And then they do that. Okay, next game, you got to get your partners, everyone puts their belt to the back of their belt knot to the back. When I say go, you got to pull their belt knot back to the front. Okay, next game, you got to get grip and throw each other. And so all of a sudden they're doing judo, but they think it's part of the game. And then I have some kids go, so when are we doing judo? And I'm like, no, we are doing judo. No, this is the game, and judo. Like, this is it. So obviously, you can't do that all the time. So other times, it's sit down and let's do some explicit teaching and that sort of stuff. So but my classes are high energy. I don't do much explicit teaching. Like even in my ALS classes, I'm not a big over the top explicit teacher, which I need to get better at. I need to kind of slow down my teaching and teach a little bit longer than I usually do. I might teach for 3 minutes. Okay, go practice it, and I'll go around and help people. Where some of my assistant instructors, he'll teach for 10 minutes, but cover every single detail. And so I kind of say I need to be more like Mod and go a little bit longer. But he needs to be more like me, maybe cut it down a little bit. So we're always kind of working out explicit teaching. But now when I teach in a classroom, I'm the same thing. Who can come out and do this, 22 times 5? How'd you figure out? Okay, let's go. And my explicit teaching is quite limited, but my teamwork with the kids is quite high. So, but yeah, so I kind of just, it has to be fun, has to be engaging, has to be high energy. But on the flip side, they need to know what judo is and how it works. And so you don't want to be having a McJojo where they can't fight.
Yeah, that's one of my fears. Playing too many games and not enough jiu-jitsu.
Yes, and so you got to make jiu-jitsu somehow a game, so they're doing it. Because you'll do games at jiu-jitsu where they're doing epic judo throws. I never taught them that, so they're doing it. So they can do it, but it's about, do they know what they're doing, firstly? But in your syllabus, and I can send you mine, the Australian Judo has a syllabus. For a yellow belt, you need to know 4 throws and 4 hold downs. Well, that's all good and well, but if you can't do it on a resisting opponent, what's the point? Like that, you may as well not be able to do it at all. So I have the syllabus, and then I have down the bottom the real syllabus. Are you a good team player? Can you do the throw on a resisting opponent who is smaller than you? So if you can't even do it on someone smaller than you, then you're not going to get graded. Or you also get graded on your overall training intensity. So if you know 10 throws and you can do them but you don't, when you spar, you walk around talking with your partner, you're also not going to get it graded. Because I don't want my blue belts getting bashed up at school because I'm grading them because they can do them. So I tell them, like when we're rolling at the club or we're doing judo, we're fighting, we're practicing when a bully attacks us. And if you were having a chat about your homework and what your favourite show is, I guarantee that bully's going to bash your head in. So now's the time to practice. So my grading syllabus is this, and then I'll say to the kid, what's your overall training intensity like? Do you talk a lot? Yeah, I do talk a lot. Well, do you think you should get graded? No, I shouldn't. Yeah, that's right, you shouldn't. And you're not going to until you start upping the level. Because
how do you feel about teaching kids submissions? Because some places do it and some don't.
It was funny. I'm still very judo. So in judo, skirt chokes are illegal. You can't do skirt chokes. So you can do collar chokes, but you can't do skirt chokes. So even now in jiu-jitsu, I've taught skirt chokes once, and I never look for them. I never see them. The other day I got choked by one because it doesn't enter my brain that skirt chokes are a thing. Even though I've done jiu-jitsu for 12 years or 15 years or something, I'm still kind of stuck in this judo brain. And the other one is head scissors. In judo, it's illegal. But in jiu-jitsu, it's not. So I get head scissors all the time because I'm like, I'm all safe. Wait, it's jiu-jitsu, head scissors, damn it. So the other one is submissions. In judo, they do strangles when you're 15 and arm bars when you're under 17. So they really put arm bars, really. So when I see 8-year-old kids slapping on arm bars, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
But, and we had one of my coaches brought his son along to one of my judo classes, and this kid was taking backs and choking kids out. And so one problem I had was judo rules is there's no submission, so I never taught them to tap out. And I've got my coach's son coming in, and he's rear naked choking kids, and they're crying and that because he's just right. So then it becomes this balance of, oh man, I got like. So in the end, I'm getting used to it, but it's still a bit odd. But I think in the end, a child and an adult should never have to tap out. I should tap out. A submission at the club should never be applied, like except for a strength, because they don't break your arm. So I always tell the adults, like, you should never put an armbar on, ever. Your partner should have already tapped, and you should never apply one. You should release it before it's on. And the kids are the same. You can teach armbars, but they should never be applied. They're always tapped early or released early. So as long as we're teaching that as culturally, then that's okay. Yeah.
I teach them how to tap a lot, but the little kids, I don't teach them an armbar. They're just hugging the arm and crossing their legs, and they don't know they're doing it. They don't know it's an armbar. I don't show them how to finish it. I just show them how to get there.
Yeah, awesome. You're teaching the skill without them knowing. That's kind of like part of the game, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know,
and they love it.
And they love it, yeah.
You mentioned before. Sorry?
I was just going to say, like, I do love working with the kids, and we also have a really good behaviour management and just a good club culture. You know, really, really fun, really engaging. It's really cool.
It's nice. You mentioned also before we went on air that you do a bit of motivational speaking. How'd you get into that?
I always like reading motivational books. And often I talk to the up-and-coming athletes, and they ask me the same thing. And so I wrote a book called Hard-Fought Lessons, which just cover... So now when people ask me questions, I go, just go read my book, and then come talk to me, because it'll answer your question. My book will answer your question. So I did that, and then I'm a pastor and a preacher at church, so I speak a lot in front of congregation, and then so I'm kind of used to that. And then I wrote my book, and then Scout, like I do, like the Scouts invite me to come speak, or the Girls Brigade come ask me to speak. And now I'm doing this thing with the Australian Olympic Committee, where I go to schools and just talk about the Olympic spirit of setting goals, chasing your dreams, and never giving up. So I kind of do that. So that's kind of my general how I got into kind of public speaking, I guess, is that kind of a meld of being a preacher at church / I wrote a motivational book and that sort of stuff. So it kind of all flows.
Nice.
But it's really cool, and I really enjoy it. And I really good questions from, like, I did a high school the other day, and they asked some really great questions that can hopefully help them. You know, because so many kids, you know, parents don't tell them they can change the world. You know, they don't have to be a world champion, but they can be a better version of themselves. You know, chasing their dreams and that sort of stuff, and never giving up. So
yeah, that's good. That's great. You're teaching kids important life skills. I equate martial arts as teaching someone to swim. So you don't have to be a world champion swimmer, but it's still an essential life skill that might save your life one day. Same as learning how to fight.
Yeah, 100%. And I still can't believe people don't get their kids involved in some sort of fighting. Like, get them involved. Like, just because it's... And sometimes people ring me and they go, hey, I want to get my kids into judo. Can you tell me a bit about it? Would my kid like it? And I remember saying to one person, mate, try out judo, try out taekwondo, do whatever they like as long as they get in there and do it. Like, this, you know, and he's like, oh, I'm going to bring him to your place because you didn't sell me your place. Like, you said try other art, go here and go there, so I'm going to come to you now but there's an element of, if your kid does jiu-jitsu and they hate it, just go put him in boxing, they might love it, but get him into a fighting that they're actually going to enjoy, and then hopefully they'll do it for a long period of time. And there'll be elements where they do hate it, but they've got to go anyway. So find that balance as a parent of where am I pushing too hard and where am I not pushing enough. It's very tricky.
Yeah, very sure.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
I love how you said that you competed at an older age, and I think that's actually inspiring for me to go, here's a guy that went to the world at an older age. That is actually inspiring. And as a coach, the kids see that and go, wow, if he tries, so can I. You know? Yeah. And that's why I also start competing, because I show my athletes and my students how to win and how to lose. So did you see me yelling at the referee when I lost? No. Then either do you. Did you see me run around like a lunatic when I won? No. Either do you. So, like, the leaders of the club are the ones that show the next generation how to do it. And so if we're getting out of the comfort zone all the time, they will get out of the comfort zone all the time. And I did a tournament the other week, and I had all my teenagers compete. And in the class, I said, "Put your hand out, come out the front if you competed," and they all came out. Some of them got smacked, lost in 10 seconds. And I was like, "Put your hand up if you were nervous," and I put my hand up. Put your hand up if you didn't want to compete the day of the tournament. I put my hand up, and they're like, "Oh, you're nervous too, Matt? Yeah, but you went to the Olympics. How could you?" And who didn't want to lose in 10 seconds? Oh, they're like, "Oh, you're the same as me." Yeah, that's right, I am the same, but I did it anyway. Like, I get nervous, and I'm an Olympian and that sort of stuff. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Everyone gets nervous, and so hopefully, over time, you show the kids that you're human. And I actually wrote a book. Have you seen that book? I've got my first jiu-jitsu competition. I'll send you a copy.
That's awesome, yeah.
Yeah, it's not out yet because it's like a self-published through Amazon, but COVID has happened, and so Amazon don't ship internationally. So, yeah. Anyway, it's called My First Jiu-Jitsu Competition, and it's all about this sort of stuff. It's really cool.
Awesome.
That's fantastic. I think it's important, even for adults, it's important for them to know that it's okay to be nervous and anxious and afraid, because once you do it, you'll feel better for it. Like I know I did. I was 39 when I went to the Worlds, and they looked at my name tag, my ID tag, and they looked at me, and the guy, I was in the bullpen. Before I walked out, he sort of looked at me and was just like, "Good luck," like this, gave me a pat on the shoulder, because I was going out with like 20-year-olds. So there was, at the time, there was no, I guess there was no sort of cut-off point or qualifying brackets. So it was a little bit more open, but it was still an awesome experience. I got to go and watch the best fighters in the world compete against each other back in 2012. I got to watch like Marcus Almeida fight Rodolfo Vieira, two of the greatest grapplers ever. I got to sit there and watch it live, and people go, "Oh, why'd you do that for?" I went, "Oh, it's fun. Why not?"
Dude, they're so awesome. And you competed at purple belt. I reckon that'd be harder than black belt, because they're like I reckon when I'm fighting people, competitive purple belts, I think they're the hardest ones, because they're like all power, all speed. They're young. Where black belts are usually a bit older, they're a bit more injured. It's a little bit like, "Oh yeah, just roll." But purple belts are like just like throttling you. You're like, "Oh god."
Yeah, they want to bring the pain. They just want to hurt everybody, something to prove, and they have cardio to do it.
My kids are like, "I've just spent 6 hours watching John Danaher heel hook videos." I'm like, "Really? I spent 6 hours trying to change nappies." Like it's like next level, which is all good on you.
That's great.
Yeah, that was great.
Cool. All right, so...
You got anything else, Shane?
Nah. I'm just kind of approaching the hour anyway, so from there.
Okay.
That's good. No, I was just... It's good to be the fly on the wall. I'm just going, yeah. I sit back on it. So that's cool. So, Matt, look, this has been awesome. It's great. There's another, great Aussie role model out there inspiring the youth and that. And just, bringing through the next generation of Aussie combat sports athletes. So do you want to plug anything in terms of where people can find you on social media if they want to contact you?
I guess so. So I have an Instagram at Beyond Grappling, my Facebook Beyond Grappling, YouTube Beyond Grappling. I've got stuff on BJJ and judofanatics.com. Just keep rolling and have fun. Thanks for having me.
That's great.
Yeah. No worries. Thanks for coming on. It's been great.
Yeah.
That was awesome fun.
That's nice. All right, guys. So, thanks for listening to us again from there. I usually do my plug, but I've got an outro now, so I'm going to go do it so I can mess my words up. So you can just listen to the outro where you can find us. But, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, where we're at most of the time, okay? Catch you next time, all right? Us.
Yeah.
Thanks again for listening to the Combat Chat Podcast. You can catch all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, and all other podcast platforms. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Follow your boys on Instagram, Facebook, at Combat Chat Podcast. See you next week.